When comfort foods do more harm and the true hidden costs of self soothing, this video is going to be directly explaining the feel good habits that we have or that I have had, past tense, and how it actually makes you feel worse and what it's actually avoiding you, what avoiding in you. So, what are you avoiding by doing self soothing, which people who aren't spiritual see as self soothing and they're comforting and they're kind of therapizing themselves and making themselves feel better, but it's actually counterproductive for people who are spiritual because we see everyone who is doing all these self soothing things as people who care about themselves and are doing it in a way that's kind of like self help or in a way that's more so self care. But that doesn't work for us. And if you resonate with my channel, it probably doesn't work for you either. And you are using these metrics that don't apply to pioneers, right? You're using this metric that doesn't apply to pioneers to try to make your life work for you. And just like me, it'll kind of unravel for you. And so this video is going to either show you how that's going to unravel and what you're going to see as it unravels, or it's going to actually tell you how yours unraveled in the past. And you're going to kind of be able to resonate with the actual path that it took for me to get there as well. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because, oh, and also at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about why social media feels so social now and actually what brought us there. So, and actually what it looks like, because last night I was chat GPTing what does social media and like stuff, life, the world, money, business, career, going to look like in the next 55 years. And so I have these predictions in my back pocket. And now, because I looked that up, I'm like seeing it everywhere. And I'm so excited to see that happen because I will be alive in 55 years, right? That's not even that far away from now. So that's only 55 more New Year's days, which is not a lot. And I'm excited for this video. I would make that content creation part of the end of the video into a separate video, but it doesn't need its own separate video. It's a very small topic that I just came up with on the side of my head. So the first thing is when I was writing my notes on this, because it actually happened to me today. And as you guys know, if you watch my channel, that I will go through something and literally as I'm going through it, as I'm watching it dissolve in my reality, I will come to this channel, talk about exactly what's going on, and then it's literally disappeared from my reality. And so it's so interesting that this is also another thing, and it feels like it's happening more often now. So interesting. But that's how this channel goes at this current moment is I'll have a certain change like this with self-soothing and self-satiation, which is a normal thing for people to have, right? But it's something that doesn't hold up when you don't live in the 3D. So the thing was I met with someone earlier today, maybe like 2 hours ago. And when I met with them, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to get food after because I really want this specific salmon and salad. I consider myself to be a clean eater, but the things that I eat aren't necessarily clean. They just are like fish is clean, salad is clean, but really they have just as much calories as everything else. When you add the Caesar dressing, all the seasonings, all the sauces, all the butter, all of it makes it unhealthy. But that's what I wanted to get. And it just sounded so good to me because that's something I've been every time I go to this specific place, that's what I get. And really, when I go to any place, that's what I get. That's like my thing, salmon and salad. I love it. And when I was trying to convince myself, right? Like I'm on the road, I'm trying to convince myself, do I go to this place? right? Because in the past, I would have a lot of times where I would be going somewhere completely unrelated to food. And then I'm like, no, but I have to stop and get this burger. I have to stop and get these fries. I have to stop and get this whatever, these chicken nuggets. And it got into a really bad habit because I'm a meal prepper. I consider myself to be a lazy person as well. So if I'm not going out to eat and like order or buy food, I don't want to cook it. I really don't. I'm a person that's like a meal prepper, cook everything in one day, eat it throughout the week, maybe have snacks like a granola bar or a protein bar, fruit that I cut up throughout the week as my snack, or nuts like pecans and cashews is really like my main snack, and peaches and almonds, or like a smoothie along with the protein bar or granola bar as a snack. And then that's pretty much it. And you don't have to cook the snacks, right? You just go to the fridge, get the fruit, cut it up, and eat it. Or blend up some frozen fruit, drink it as a smoothie. Like you don't have to really work towards those things. So I know myself as a very lazy person at the moment. And I say lazy not because it's a bad term, but just because that's what whatever. And I have meal prep in my fridge while I'm trying to convince myself that I want to go get this food, this burger, right? I'm talking about the past situation, and I'll get back to the salmon situation. But in the past, how this used to affect me, um, this was maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, and I literally was just like, well, money isn't real, and money comes back, and my money will multiply, and you only live once, and all these different excuses of why I was literally gonna go get that burger. And I ended up going to get it, knowing I had meal prep in my fridge. And afterwards, I was just like, why do I feel like I shouldn't have got it? But I don't have the answer for that yet. But now I do. But I didn't have the answer for it. I just felt like I shouldn't have got it. And I felt like I shouldn't have went that far to like convince myself to go get it. But like again, the convincing was very convincing. So I got it. Right? I couldn't debunk the argument at the time. I'm like, okay, I'm arguing against myself. I want the burger. I'm going to argue for the burger, and I got it. But what happened is today I had the same situation where I'm like going somewhere completely unrelated. I'm like, I want to go get this salad. And then I realized, why are you craving the salad and salmon and whatever? It's not that you want the salmon and salad, because I literally have salmon and salad in my home. And I'm like, trying to figure it out, and I'm using the um same persuasive methods. I'm like, oh well, money isn't real, and it'll come back around, and you know um what else did I say? I'm trying to list them out so that if you relate to this, you can actually see that as well for your own self. And what else did I say? I said, well, I really want to go take myself out to treat myself, and all these other things. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? How is going out to get food treating yourself? If anything, that's doing the opposite, because it's actually healthier to eat at home based on like what's in the actual food, right? Having a salad and salmon at home is actually way healthier than going to get it from some restaurant that's going to put a ton of oils and butters and sauces on it to make it actually taste good and make it taste like it wouldn't at home. And it just really confused me because I couldn't convince myself this time. And I was like, I really, really want it. And I tried to convince myself using the same tactics, and it didn't work. And I had to look deeper in, and actually, like 2 hours after I got home, so like a few minutes ago, I just literally pulled out my notes, and it just like all poured out. And it's like I'm no longer a match for self satiation. And a few months ago, maybe like March, I put this screen on my phone, well, no, on my iPad, that says Jesus is the only true. Let me look. Let me actually just go look. It's a Bible verse, I believe. It is It's Psalms 107:9. Only Jesus can truly satisfy. And I put that on there in March, and I've left it there. And although like I have my ideas about religion and whatever, I still kept it there because it's something just wanted me to keep it there. And I'm not opposed to doing things because they don't seem right. I just do them because I just follow things and they all make sense after. So I'm like, there's some type of self satiation that I'm trying to get towards, and it's never ever going to happen. And I realized that like after I met with this person, not that it's their fault, but I felt very like I was missing something, or that I'm like in FOMO, which is like fear of missing out on something. And then I got home, and then my friend was texting me that they're gonna come and see me, but they didn't say it. They said it unprovoked, and I'm like, they've said that so many times. Like I'm just feeling like none of this is making sense, or all these different thoughts. And the point is wanting to get food, going to grab Starbucks, going to grab Chick-fil-A, going to buy wings, going to get like all these different things is literally a form of self satiation and self soothing as a pick me up. And that's the term I really want to like really anchor in on this video is the pick me up part. Like using something 3D that you can go get from external to add to you, to eat, to put on, to wear, to whatever as the pick me up. And my confusion is that how can something outside of me make me happier than I am? Because once I eat it, then I'm no longer going to have the thing to satiate that feeling of let's just say like the feeling of like life's not working out right. You go and eat, or you go grab a Starbucks to have a pick me up, or you're just not feeling yourself. So you go grab your favorite fast food as a comfort food. That is not a sustainable option, not only because of the money, right? And then if you don't have the money to go self satiate, now you feel even worse because now you feel poor, and you think you think that you're lonely because you can't buy the thing. And so now you feel really bad that you're poor, or that you can't buy the thing, and that you don't get to self satiate. But you don't understand that the self satiation is the part that doesn't make sense, because sure, I can like scrape up 20 bucks and go get this meal, but what happens after I eat it and I come back home? Now I'm full. Now I'm right back into my routine. Oh, it's probably going to be 8 p.m. time to get ready for bed. Go to sleep, wake up, still feel the same feeling until something else comes around where I'm either using it to pick myself up, or I'm using it as a way to distract myself from the feelings I'm actually having. So the pick me up is the problem. It's not the actual like it's the intention to have a pick me up is the problem. I'm not saying I'm never going to go grab Starbucks if I'm craving like a whatever drink, or I'm never going to grab wings, or I'm never going to go out to ever eat again, or whatever. That's not the problem. The problem is we're using food as a pick me up, when the problem is you need to be able to pick your own self up. And guess what? You can make the food a byproduct. I might actually go get the food after this video because I didn't, because I was able to turn myself away from false self satiation and false self soothing, to where I made myself feel better. I'm like, when you're protecting yourself from pain or feeling a feeling you don't want to feel, and you go and self soothe outside of you and pick yourself up outside of you, it is distracting you from the feelings you need to feel. So if I say, you know what, I'm really craving this food, I do like that food, but actually I know that underneath it's self soothing, then I'm going to sit within myself, actually solve that problem of why I feel the way that I feel. And then when I rise back to my normal vibration, I'm going to go do whatever. And that may be go getting the food, but I'm never going to use something like food or anything else to bring me up to that level. And that's the point that I'm trying to get at. Because when you are feeling sad or lonely or depressed or whatever, and you use something outside of you to get the pick me up, the pick me up at some point is not going to be there. The only thing that's there always is you. And if you can't pick your own self up and you can't sit with yourself and say, hey, I feel super lonely, like, what do I feel about that? Right? How am I going to navigate those feelings without allowing myself to do something outside of me to be able to feel okay again? And that's where we really get into like the self-soothing, the comfort food, all that. It's like the food is not the problem. And I heard this from Myron Golden at some point. He talked about food is the one thing that the devil uses to um get you distracted from the word of God or something at that something to that effect, because the first sin was caused because of food. There's many parables in the Bible which are not real stories. They are metaphors for what couldn't be explained by the language at that time. Parables aren't the actual like he, she did this. It's literally the metaphor of it. So if you think of the metaphor of food being in so many parables, that is so interesting that even back then, sin started with food, and throughout the Bible, it continued to be reinforced by food. And food played a big part in the Bible overall. And not necessarily that there's one singular parable about a pick me up, but I'm just saying in general, food plays a big part in in desiring food and the role that food plays in our life right now, and how it has such an effect on people and how it can literally control your mind. I mean, I'm sitting, you know, doing something in my life, and then I'm like, oh well, I want this food, and now all I can think about is convincing myself to get that food. There's a problem with that. There's a problem with craving something that one isn't good for you, but two isn't actually gonna solve anything. Like, what happens when you don't have the food? And that's where I would made a video maybe yesterday or the day before when I was talking about like having having a life where you're really going through a lot of struggle or just depressive mode or depressive seasons or whatever. Like there's seasons and phases to all of it. And you take so much longer to get through a phase because you're not taking the time to actually alchemize that thing. If you can say, I really like when you feel like it's time to do a pick me up and you just sit in that and you alchemize it into something better and you raise your vibration back to where it's supposed to be, then you go get the food and maybe even make that your positive reinforcement. That's what I was doing for food with like a reward system. So if I did something that I really want to get done, and like the reward would be like whatever I want it to be, but sometimes it would be like going to get something to eat, whatever. And that worked for me. It still does. I don't really do it that much anymore. I'm using rest as my um, reward for the moment. Rest is a really great reward for me at this time. But yeah, and then another point that I wrote down is that like this self-satiation really has no control over me. And it's like I can really want to eat food from some specific place, but I understand that cravings aren't necessarily cravings. It's a self protective mechanism that's trying to get me to focus on something else other than me, because I can very much say, oh, I'm super hungry, I'm going to drive home and go get some food that's in my fridge to satiate that same hunger. And I, like I said, I have meal prep. There's no like, oh, I don't want to cook because I have like so many groceries. Like that's one of the reasons I started meal prepping, because I was like, okay, every time I'm hungry I use the excuse that I only have groceries and ingredients, so I need to go and get something to eat. But then I started doing that and I started actually timing how much time it took to make a meal versus how much time it took to get a meal. And when I would go get a meal, I'm sitting in the drive-through line for 10 to 15 minutes. Then you wait 10 to 15 minutes to drive back home. It took you 15 minutes to get there. So you're spending 45 minutes to an hour getting food. It's not going to take you an hour to make and eat food, and even to include washing the dishes or cleaning the kitchen. Like all that doesn't take an hour. It probably takes you 10 minutes to make the food, 10 minutes to eat it, and 15 minutes to clean the kitchen, right? So I was just like, okay, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold up anymore. And like I said in another video, is that I will never tell myself no because of something I think is hard or doesn't work. I will literally try it. And after I try it and I prove myself that it's right or wrong, then I will proceed further. And so I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I've literally debunked the fact that getting food outside is quicker because it's not. It really never is. Even if you're doing Chick-fil-A, which personally I think is the quickest food that you can get because they're for some magical reason their line is always so quick. And I still don't think that it is worth spending that time, especially based off self-satiation. And another thing I wrote down is I can definitely finally see how certain things were tugging on me, and I see how the I can see the false urgency that it was causing. So it's like you're really, really, really needing a pick me up right now. Go get that thing. Go get that thing. Go get that thing. And it's like, well, why? Why? Why do I need that specific thing? Why do I need the thing I'm craving? Why do I actually have to go eat the thing that I'm craving? That doesn't make sense. Like if I'm craving it, there's definitely a deficit between, that and some other choice for sure. But does that actually mean that I have to eat that specific thing just because I'm craving it? And that doesn't hold up either. So and then I last year October, I was doing a lot of self urgency work, and I think that's coming back up now because I would have urgency to talk to people, urgency to do things, urgency to go places, and the same thing is showing up now with this false sense of urgency, with self satiation, and just really trying to have these false pick me ups, and it's just like, if you're sad, what do you think a movie's gonna do? You're gonna watch the movie, and then you're gonna do you think you feel better because you're distracting yourself? Just because you don't feel that way for an hour doesn't mean that you still don't feel that way. You just pushed it down more. And you're after you've already pushed it down more, you are um giving it a second to like be pushed all the way down. And then after the movie's done, it rises back up. And you're like, you're giving yourself a false sense of hope that after time you'll feel better, you'll feel good enough to attack or what's a better word for that? Like kind of just approach that problem with a better solution. It's like if you get in an argument, you think that if you take 10 minutes away from each other, then come back and reconvene, then the problem will be easier to solve, which can be true in cases. But just because it's true in some cases doesn't mean it's true in others. And I think that when we push our problems down, they actually stay pushed down. Like they don't disappear. When we push it down with a movie or with Starbucks or with Chick-fil-A or with whatever we eat, they just stay where they are. They don't leave our body. They just transform into something else or they stay down and they come back up. So either way you're still gonna have to address it. And now I feel like I'm at the point where I can definitely say I don't need to go get fast food. I don't have cravings for it. I don't have cravings for these pick me ups and like these things that are supposed to like make me feel better because I understand like my brain is past the point of thinking that something outside of me could make me want like I'm past the point of something outside of me making me feel better. That just doesn't make sense to me anymore. And that part is still question mark on it. I don't know exactly how that'll come all together in a full circle moment. But as at least with self satiation, I don't feel that anymore. I don't feel that something outside of me can actually pick me up. And I would do that all the time. Like I would like feel really sad, and I'll go to TJ Maxx, and then go to Ulta, and then go to Sephora, then go to Whole Foods and go to Trader Joe's and go to all these places and come back with all these bags and a cup of coffee from Starbucks and do unboxing hauls and all this stuff. And then I'm just like, oh, okay, like I feel great now. And then after the stuff gets old and I'm not using it anymore, or now it's just a thing sitting on my desk, now what? Like, I still have to address that. And so I think it's easier to get to where you want to be and close that gap and really quantum leap by actually and quantum leap by actually just dealing with it while it's here, not taking time to just but really sad about that thing and be like, oh, I'm gonna self-soothe and do all this stuff. Like it's just easier to deal with it now. It's like if you have a sink full of dishes, it may make you feel better to like not wash them tonight. But then when you get up tomorrow, now you're starting your day with a sink full of dishes. Like at some point you're still gonna have to get rid of the dishes. And if that's actually your problem, watch my delegation video. It's one of my recent videos that I just posted last week. I try to post every week. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is recording videos when I have transmissions or raw transmutations, and then I will schedule them out to like come out once a week. But I don't know how I feel about that yet. But it should already be out. Okay, but yeah, so that delegation video will definitely help you because you can I literally broke down in that video how you can spend $20 and never think about washing dishes again and free up your entire life exactly how to free up your entire life by using $20 to do your dishes. And so the next thing is that I wrote down is money doesn't have an effect on me and the well, money doesn't exist or it'll just come back as an excuse to spend on self-satiation doesn't work anymore. And I think that money still has a grip. Mm, it's like giving 25%, like 25%, 75% ratio of yes and no. And yeah, that's what it is like. And it has a grip, but less than it used to. And so yeah, the money doesn't exist or the money doesn't whatever. They're not good excuses anymore because talking about money in those ways is still giving into the idea that it is real. Like if it didn't exist, I wouldn't be talking about it. If it didn't exist, I wouldn't have to spend it. I wouldn't have to talk about it. I wouldn't have to deal with it. Now there's so many ways, like in the delegation video where I tell you, I think I told you about like 10 ways to delegate everything in your life so that you don't so you can free up your energy and your time to do other things you would rather do, but you still have to include money in um all those things that are occurring in your life. So money doesn't necessarily have such a great effect or grip on me, but using the term like, "Oh, money doesn't exist," or what because when I was saying it before, I was saying it just as an excuse to go self-satiate. But now I understand that money doesn't have anything to do with self-satiation, and it has nothing to do with self-soothing, and it has nothing to do with getting a pick-me-up. So now I understand why those don't tie together, and I'm either gonna go on a path of finding out what what self-satiation and self-soothing really is, through like inner work or I don't know, because earlier I asked myself this question. I had a random question. I was like, do I even take care of myself? Like, what does self care really mean? And I was like, I don't even think I really take care of myself. I said those three things, and I don't even know where they came from, but that might be where I'm heading next. I guess we'll see the future videos for for that. And the next thing was I can use that rhetoric. Oh yeah, this is like to piggyback off the last point. It's like using those things like money doesn't exist or it'll come back as a way to self-satiate doesn't work, but those rhetorics work for like wanting to invest in a skill, wanting to invest in a masterclass, wanting to invest in coaching, wanting to invest in my career or my job or my business or whatever. Like those things still hold up as like as a way to not spend as a way to not be scared to spend money because well money doesn't exist or yeah, money just will come back around and it'll multiply 10x. Those are all ways to not be scared to spend money. That's what they are. Those are ways to not be scared to spend money. But because I've broken down and kind of dissolved the idea about self satiation and self soothing, I see that those rhetorics still hold up for getting skills and master classes and, mentorship and paying for other stuff like that for business or career because they make me not scared to invest in those things. So now I see it as like I'm not scared to invest in things that make me a better person, but I'm not going to use that same rhetoric to excuse the fact of going to go get like fast food every time that I see a McDonald's or something. You know what I mean? So I've separated those in my mind right now, which is my favorite thing. The next point says I can use, oh, I just read that. Oh yeah, like adding more to the 3D no longer helps. So like buying things, getting things, owning things. Like I used to be a T-Moo warrior. She in warrior. Like I would sit on there all day. I would get $30 and then configure a cart worth of $29.99 for like 2 weeks. And I'd like make the perfect cart. That was my personality. And those things no longer hold up. Like I don't want to add anything else. I actually don't care about any of that stuff. And that's really interesting because I do love shopping, but just not like stuff like that. Like I'm moving up and like I would much rather go and spend money on furniture or something that's like better for my overall health or long term rather than like small stuff like Timu or Shein and stuff like this that isn't great quality like that. The other thing is I used to be able to convince myself to get food instead of meal prep because of self-satiation. I talked about that one already. And the last point, before we talk about the social media point is that self-protection is self-soothing and self-soothing is self-protection. And your like you're like what are you protecting yourself from? Oops. You're protecting yourself from the pain between desires. So you notice that, or I noticed that, you may notice that when you're going through a really hard time, you're feeling lonely, feeling sad, like life isn't working out, you really have these high moments of like wanting to satiate, like needing to do like substances or drink or do all these things, or like you feel yourself falling back into like all the habits like fast food and snacking and all the stuff like that. What the difference is that when you are actually not in the in between pain, but you actually are at one of the desires, you no longer do that. And I see that with myself a lot too. Like if I'm fully in a desire, fully focused on a desire, the self satiation is not a thing. But when I'm in the in between, right, which is most of your life is in the in between of desires. Most of your life is going to be the in between of desires. It's most of your life is the journey. It's not getting things, it's the journey. And that is the part that is like, okay, how much am I going to self protect myself if most of my life is the journey? How much time am I going to satiate if most of the journey is the pain and the learning and the healing? I talked about that in my desire timeline video where I talked about like how the desire timeline works and specifically just how it looks for desires to actually materialize. And so if you're self protecting in between every single desire, you're going to end up probably self-sabotaging some of those desires because you're doing way too much self-protecting, and you have to get to a point where you're like okay being uncomfortable, you're okay being sad, you're okay being lonely, you're okay not knowing, you're okay without all the money, you're okay without this, okay without that, you're like okay without it. And that's when you don't care about self-satiating anymore. So the last point I was going to talk about is why social media just seems so community based now. Because I was like coming to do my live and I saw someone posted a video and it was like basically I just like saw a vision of like people are posting on social media as conversation starters, as conversation openers. We're not like posting how to do this, do that, like performative content. It's really communication based. And I think that's amazing that we've gotten back here because when social media started, it was like to connect with friends, to connect with people. And now I feel like YouTube is a really great space where you can talk to people. It's almost like having a FaceTime with people all across the world instead of just your 10 friends from your hometown. And I think that is so cool. I really do think that is so cool. And that not only do you get to FaceTime with tens of thousands of people from around the world, but you get to keep that FaceTime recording, aka the YouTube video, obviously. And you get to keep that on your channel and they get to keep coming back and watching these conversations that you had. And they get to rewatch, and it just gets to be like a super fun communication based thing. And I think that communication is so prominent right now because there was such a time where everyone's kind of focused on themselves and making the content that they want to make and whatever. And then a lot of people just got like spiritual people just got super tired of watching that type of content. And they're like, okay, well, where are all the people just talking about stuff? So when live came out for like Instagram and Facebook, people started being able to share. And I see it a lot with TikTok. But now I'm seeing a lot of it with YouTube, is people just coming on to talk. And I think that is just a beautiful thing and that we're really going to need and going into the next decade is like we're going to need more communication. I think you are people are going to be able to get paid off of other people's attention, but people are okay paying attention and that being converted into currency. So you have content and people are watching your content, but people are paying attention and their attention is converting into currency for you. They're not necessarily paying you while they can. They're not necessarily paying you. You're just in a transaction of you're just in a transaction of getting paid to exist because you're now like renting yourself as a friend to other people, but it's people that you do want to communicate with. And I think that's really cool. Now, I'm like, I actually have a taste for that food. And I actually might go get it. Like that would actually be so delicious. And oh my gosh, that's amazing. I was actually taking a class with someone and last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that. I don't even remember. Time just and they were talking about if you want people to buy from you, you have to become a better buyer. So don't think what do you get out of it. Think of who do you become with it and actually buying things because you want to enjoy. And also, this is a separate thing buying things because you enjoy it, not because you think you need it or forcing yourself into it. Like when you go do that thing, are you actually going to like it? So if I think about it, okay, am I a good buyer if I go and get this meal? Because am I thinking, what am I getting out of it? Or am I thinking, who am I with it? Well, technically, with food, you're not going to be anything extra with it. Or are you? Are you anything with it? It's more so what transformation do you get after what transformation do you get by buying that food versus specifically like, oh, I'm gonna get this meal for this amount of money. It's like, what is the actual transformation? Now, if I'm going out with friends, the transformation is that I get to have a conversation over a meal, right? I may have a breakthrough, thought, but the transformation can also be like, I want to go and really enjoy some food. And the transformation, right? Setting that intention is also important to be a good buyer. It's like, I'm going to go and enjoy some food that I'm not forcing myself to get. Um, yeah, money comes back. Yeah, money technically doesn't exist. Yeah, all these other things. But I really just want to go get it to sit down and just sit. I just want to have some time of solitude and sit and eat this meal that I know is already delicious because I've already got it before. But getting this meal and sitting down and knowing that I get to not like there's nothing tied to it. I think that is a transformation for me. I'm probably not going to. I guess I'll say it in my next video if I end up doing it or not. But I think that now I'm convincing myself out of it. I mean, I can really just transmute it right now. It's just that I'm okay without it. And right now, I'm juggling. I'm not juggling anything, but it's like spending money because I can on the food, right? Because I have clear access to do that as free will, or spending money, or not spending money on it because I can. Like, am I spending money because I can or saving money because I can? Because there's some people on the earth that can't not self satiate. That's it. I felt that. There's some people on the earth who can't self satiate. Who can't help themselves from self satiating. There's some people on the earth that will never ever get to the point where they figure out that the pick me ups are not helping them. And I'm one of the people who figured out that I get to go get whatever I want, but I don't actually have to go get food. I might just go get a ouch. I might just go get a cookie out of my fridge and probably call my friend or something. I don't know. But yeah, you don't actually have to go do that. I think the point that I think the transmutation I'm getting from not buying this thing is that I am a good buyer because I know I don't have to. Because I know if I'm craving something, I don't have to go do it. And that's the trans transformation that I'm getting from. And I feel like my memory is getting better too. Like sometimes I forget words, but like I feel like my memory is getting really good. Um, but some people can't not have that transformation. Yeah, some people can't have that transformation. And I was one of the people who are able to say, I would love to go get that food. But let me think about it as if like, am I spending it to just spend money? Like I'm not spending it to self-satiate. Okay. So am I spending it to just go spend money because I can? Or am I gonna save that money and the energy is gonna take to go do that thing just because I can save that energy? Like some people can't make themselves stay home if they wanted to. Like they feel a push and they feel that urgency and they're like, I have to go, I have to go, I have to go. And that's more dangerous than anything I personally think is that my brain just had a glitch. Whoa. But I think that's way more disruptive is that you can't do the thing. And that's what makes you not a good buyer. It's not that you don't have the money or that you are self-satiating. It's that you really don't have an option. And that's really what makes you a person who is on the other side of like, a person. And the other thing about food is I realize like if you think about what you want to have and you think about how it tasted or how it would taste, you actually do get satisfied by it. Like when I say self-satiation, that is just the active verb, the action verb of satisfy, by the way, if you guys didn't pick that up. But when you think about the food, like if I think about going to get it, actually getting it, parking, going to go spend the money, then coming back and all of like cool. But if I think about just like sitting here thinking about the food and that experience, that's actually more satisfying than going to get it. So I think I've made my decision. And I was gonna try to stay on here for an hour, but I don't know what else I want to talk about. Let's see what else is to talk about. Some days I do TikTok lives because my TikTok page has access to live. And the problem with TikTok live is that I just feel like I'm not a performer. I'm not a performer, and I feel like on TikTok you have to be a performer. You have to be someone who is always talking or always teaching. You can't just sit and like have a conversation. At least that's what I think. And that's my own problem. And yeah, so it's like I don't want to get on there and I don't want to get on TikTok live because I feel like I have to perform. Like I have so many interests and so I do so many things, but I don't want to keep having to get on there and feel like I have to. Like I'll get on there and do stuff, and I can count on my hands how many lives I haven't got gifts on. Like I always will either get one or two or like 10 or 20 gifts. Like I people do that on most of my lives. If there's a person that comes around and wants to do that, but I just don't like the energy of feeling like a performer. And that's why I prefer YouTube because I know that one day someone's going to be watching this video in 2045. If it's 2045, comment below. Someone's going to be watching this video in 2045 and they're going to say, wow, I resonate exactly with what you're saying. And they're not going to have to, I'm not going to have to feel like a performer. I'm going to feel like what I'm saying is actually going to transform someone's life. And that's all I really want. I don't want communication that feels so forced and like I have to talk about a specific thing in a certain way. And that's why I'm so happy I was able to transmute and kind of alchemize the narrative of trolls or of haters or people that drink haterade or whatever, because those things are really not even real. Like they are just mirrors showing you inverted versions of how you're being. And I talked about this in what video did I talk about that in? Where I talked about like transmuting. I think I talked about it in like, let me actually see because I'm gonna look it up and see what video I talked about that in. But I said the subconscious reason why you can't grow on social media. That video, the subconscious reason, or no, I think it's actually in a 20-minute video, 23 minutes and 37 seconds. It's called "Why You Get Troll Comments on YouTube," and I talked about how you can actually magnetize someone towards you because of them not liking you, but also when they do like you and what it means and how it looks for both. And it's just really to give like my content creators or YouTubers some like woosah about the fact that they're getting hate comments or trolls and people not necessarily agreeing. Because when someone comes on my page and they're like, oh, I don't agree with that, like, or not my page, but let's say if I'm scrolling on TikTok and I'm looking at the comments and someone's like, "Oh, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that." Then I'm like, I wouldn't care if I was that person who's making the video. And the reason why I wouldn't personally care is because of what I talked about in that video. But I also don't necessarily care when people come and give me positive reinforcement by giving me nice comments because again, I don't necessarily care about that. I care about people in general, energy in general, like souls in general. I don't really care about like what you're coming to me as because I've already alchemized why you would be coming as a hater. And like like those things don't bother me, and I'm blessed that at my young age, I know I got a comment the other day asking how old I was, and I am 23. I say it in almost every video, but um, in those videos, I talk about well, in my videos, I talk about that a lot of just like alchemizing the things that you don't really like. And so Yeah. Let me see if there's any other points. I really like this point about self-satiation. And I think that over time, when you actually explore something within yourself and you're like, okay, I'm just like back when a few months ago when I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get that burger. Like I literally convinced myself to go get this burger, and I'm gonna say the burger was good, the fries were good. I would go for a burger and a fry right now. But I don't feel like, oh, I need to go get it because like I'm gonna not be okay if I don't go get that thing. That's a problem. And I think that I'm also developing the lack of external validation, which has also showed up in like my social media too. Like I don't care about the validation of others, which is like, or the validation of me through others, which is like people liking your content, viewing your content, commenting on your content, the engagement, like all that doesn't really play a part in my life because I just think it's doesn't make quite a lick of sense why you would even care about people saying that on your page when you're posting the content. Like, do you understand whose page we're on? Like, sometimes, well, not sometimes, but in the olden days, like 5 years ago, people would say, like, this is my platform. I can say what I want on my platform. But that's very true. Like, if we think about it, whose page are you on? And like, I'm here on my page to have conversations, but you're on my page telling me that I shouldn't be wanting to have conversations with people who resonate with my content and who are the same type of people as me. And you're telling me that I shouldn't. Like, you're on my page if I want to talk about alchemizing and this and that and transmuting and transformations and all this other stuff and being a good buyer and talk about social media and talk about subsatiation and talk about subconscious mind and talk about all this stuff, then I can because it's my decision to do that. And I decide to do that. And yeah, but I have like sometimes where I'm just like, no, like it's my page, like in like a snooty way, like a snobby way, but it's not even like that. It's like, it's actually rude of you to come and say that I can't do something on my page that I don't want to do because at the end of the day, like Facebook and TikTok and all the peoples, they created the platforms, but the platforms are nothing without people that create accounts on those apps and actually use those apps. If if Facebook was an app and nobody was on it, Facebook wouldn't make any money. So see, it's almost my bedtime. I literally just go to sleep so early. It's literally 6 o'clock. But yeah, and I just really love the journey that I'm on with YouTube right now because it's showing me like when you're going to new heights, you're gonna probably go there alone, but then people will meet you they'll see you at the top and they'll like, okay, when you are at the bottom, which is where everybody is, and as people climb up, it gets less and less populated as you go up, and it's really lonely and unpopulated at the top, which is the reason why the 1% win because they're the only ones operating that high. It's not necessarily that they're all the people at the bottom are bad. It's just very populated. And if you look out into a sea of people, like you look out into a sea of billions of people on the bottom, and the other thing I was gonna say about self-satiation is I can tell myself no without feeling bad. Like I can say, no, that's not good for you. No, I know it's gonna make you feel better right now, but it's actually not gonna make you feel better. Well, that actually sounds like fun, but it's actually not going to be fun in the long run. Like it's fun right now, and you can do it, but just don't do it thinking it's fun. Just do it just to do it, and don't do that because it's just not good for you. Like I'm able to tell myself no now, which is really fun. It's a really fun thing to play with, because it shows how much I actually care about my temple, my body, care about my mind, care about my energy, care about my soul, care about myself. Um, But what I was saying is that when I'm looking out, like it's really hard to spot your friend if your friend is the same height as everybody else. But if you have a really, really tall friend, that friend is really easy to spot because they're gonna be kind of like sticking out like a sore thumb in comparison to everyone else. So that's how it kind of is when you are thinking about the like, level that people are at. It's like it's really easy to see me at the top, but if you are at the bottom, you're not going to see me while I'm also at the bottom with you. You only recognize me when I get to the top because that's the only time you can really see me. Like, does that make? I know it makes sense. Like, if I'm looking out into a sea of a whole bunch of people, you're very like, if it's me plus every other YouTuber, it's really hard to see all the spiritual YouTubers all standing at the bottom. But if you take the top 10% and you kind of put us in like this ranking to who's the top 1%, it's so easy to see the 1% because they're so high up and they're so by themselves and they're so clear. And it's just like, as you look at people, you can see where they are, but it's hard to see when you're at the bottom. So when you're at the bottom trying to get to the top, don't feel like it's not for you because people aren't watching you. It's like they can't see you yet. Like they can't see you yet. But the point is to keep doing it until they can see you. Keep doing it, keep pushing, keep showing up, keep producing, stop consuming, just consume less. But keep doing that thing until they can see you. And then when they see you, you'll have already been established because what you took a whole year to get to the top of the pyramid, right? So through that 1 year time frame, you've already went through so much pain and trials and tribulations to get to the top. By the time you get to the top and everyone can see you at the bottom, like all the people at the bottom can now see you, and they have so many opinions, they have so many things to say, so many things to talk about and to be opinionated about, it's not going to bother you because you already went through those trials and tribulations of talking to yourself, of nobody listening, of nobody understanding, of everyone thinking you're crazy, of you not even understanding your own self. And that's what I think the beauty of that alchemization is like really looking within yourself and saying that and knowing that different parts of life don't actually have to come at a cost of other parts. Well, I should say the parts you care about don't have to be a cost of parts that you want to get to, but shed away, give away, like let it dissolve all the parts that you don't care about to get the ones that you do. Because if it's comfortable here, it's comfortable here at the bottom. But when you start climbing to the top, you're going to have to break a sweat. You're going to have to maybe change the clothes you're wearing so that it's better fit for climbing. You maybe have to change those cute heels that everybody loves to some sneakers that people don't think are cute. Like while you're going up, you might have to take your hair down from a beautiful curled hairstyle to put it up in a ponytail so it doesn't get in your face as you're climbing. And then guess what? When you get to the top, you get to do whatever you want. Or when you sit down for a break while you're climbing, you get to do and wear and say whatever you want. But there's trials and tribulations through all those um, parts and spaces in between each desire and each level. And getting to the top is not being picked for the top. It's picking yourself and doing whatever you want to do to get there. So that's just showing up, talking about who you are, and not being afraid to go through all those trials, not being afraid of losing people, not being understood. And every time that I've done something that was scary, as soon as I finish doing it, everything else aligns and I get back what I thought I lost and I gain the opposite of the pain. I get the happiness of the understanding of what happened. And that is what it's all about for me really. And so Let's close up shop. And I'll see you guys in my next video.